why the hell are these people, I mean, if you're practicing medicine, you can be arrested. But if you're practicing mysticism and doing exactly the same thing with the same end result, you don't go to jail. What the hell is that?
We have so many states in the United States with a faith-healing exemption to the laws regulating medicine, where you can practice medical malpractice if you say you're doing it in the name of God, and that's considered acceptable.
And we have another interested audience member.
Okay.
Introduce yourself,
esteemed
please.
audience, thank you very much. If I may. Just,
yes, please.
hello everyone, my name is Randall Calvin. On YouTube I'm known as Sky's the Limit, and I made a video relevant to this, just to change the perspective just for a moment, okay?
Oh, I thought this was your self.
Well, no, but it's called introduction, DPR. It's called good manners.
I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, we're atheists.
No, but the point, I'd like to offer this, really, well, there's many points, but just on the creationist thing. I mean, it's all very well the science, but I would offer this for perspective. I mean, I grew up a Carl Sagan fanatic. You know, I knew the science. Really. But it's just that I think we've got this wrong. I mean, we can explain ad nauseum, you know what I mean, the actual science of it, and we've all been, you're hardcore atheists, you're YouTubers, whatever, you know the story. Let me put it this way, I was Jehovah's Witness, okay, for 10 years. Wow. Now, as you know, Jehovah's Witnesses are fundamentalists, okay, but they just kill you with kindness. Okay, and I was a long way into the course before we got to the creationist thing.
Remember,
now,
they can hear you better than the mic can.
I'm sorry. Okay. That's true. Sorry. Old habits.
That's Russian.
I'm used to working with politicians every day, so to be honest. What I would just say is that it's in the psychology. Why do people buy into it? I don't believe for a moment that those people in the Bible Belt.
Scoot your chair just a bit. You're not quite on camera.
I'm sorry. I don't believe for a moment that the people in the Bible Belt or any other geographic location believe that for a moment. It's a sense of community. The point I would make in it is the way I sold out Carl Sagan and my love of science because of the love of the community I had, Jehovah's Witnesses, you know. I mean, because, and they introduced the creationist part very late. I was more interested in the linguistics of how they disassembled the Bible and told us that it wasn't the cross, it was the stouros and all that. And I was really impressed with that. Being an ex-Catholic, I knew nothing about the Bible, so I wanted to go ultra-Protestant, and the Jehovah's Witnesses was the best I could get. Now, I'm not selling that, John, that's why I'm here today, you know. But I'm just saying, I even bought into that. Okay, because of the absolute, total, absolute cloak-loving love that they gave me, hardcore. It wasn't like you go to church and you walk out. These people surround you day and night. If you were rich, you were rich. If you hadn't a pot to piss in, they give you money. And no, I mean, they killed you with kindness. I mean, and so what I'm saying is you will buy into anything. The lady earlier, speaking of the Middle East, talked about it in terms of Islam. And that's a very important point. I also lived in Lebanon for 1 year, and I lived with people like Hezbollah and in 1989, and I saw the creation of Hezbollah. And in terms of like, so, and again, Hezbollah, as seen from people on the outside, it's like this radical and Iranian thing. Yes, they are. But the point is, they're like the social welfare state. They are your clinic when you get sick. You understand? So you have no choice but to buy into it. You understand? And you will excuse an awful lot of monstrous, and they are monstrous things, you know. But you bite your lip. You know what I mean? Because what else are you going to do? That is your life. That's your community. Right. And I propose that in the South. I'll finish on this. For me, I made a video on YouTube on this. I call it Creationism USA. Why? I ask an open question. And I think in the South, because of its geographical location, I think it's the South. And I know it's a stretch, but like licking its wounds after the Civil War, trying to find an identity for itself, you know, they sort of went into that. White Anglo-Saxon Protestant, we had our ass kicked out of us, but at least we've got a Bible and we stand for all of that. Nothing nasty, no sex, drugs, rock and roll or anything else, you know, especially no Catholics or Jews or anything else, because that's our identity. No, but it's just about identity and family. So just going back, we've been talking a lot this evening, and I've heard it during the weekend, and it's been wonderful, but it's just breaking it down to science. I will say to everybody here and on the net, I mean, listen, my mother went to Mass tonight, okay? And she's not interested in molecular biology, or you know, she's not an ignorant woman. But it's just, you know, why does she go to Mass? She speaks out against pedophilia, you know what I'm saying? All of that. But why does she continue to support that? Because It's community. And until we address the psychology of that, with all respect, Daisy, I mean, I love your work, man, but it's like, my mother is not interested in going to university again. I mean, you have to appeal to the emotion of people, and until we can supplant what the cloak and the protection that they offer, whether it's witnesses or villagers in South Lebanon with Hezbollah, then if we can address those kind of, there's many issues, until we address that,
I would agree with you completely. As I mentioned, I lived in Utah for a number of years, and the Mormon Church is a master of this.
yeah.
That what we saw when we lived in Salt Lake City is that there would be these small immigrant groups that would move in, and what would happen immediately is they would receive the warm embrace of the Mormon Church. They would provide them food, they would provide them blankets, and say, okay, here's housing for you. Yeah. And they would not demand that you join the Mormon Church, but they would. Also, you know, on the point of the science, I'll mention a story that I've heard from Eugenie Scott before, is we've often heard the statistic that if you ask Americans what fraction of them believe that...
Just 1 second. Sorry, can you mute your microphone, please? We're coming to you in a very short while, don't worry. So
if we ask Americans, you know, whether they believe that humanity evolved over millions of years under undirected processes, what you find is that 60% of the population rejects that flat out. They say, no way. But you ask that same question, but instead of humans, you ask dogs. Suddenly that number plummets. That they're willing to accept that dogs have evolved over millions of years. And at the same time, these are people who believe the Earth is only 6,000 years old. So we cannot expect coherent, integrated scientific thought from them. And you're exactly right, that they like are stories. They like explanations that appeal to them. They like social frameworks that...
Well, when I left, sorry to interrupt you, when I left I was disfellowshipped. Okay, and that is a punishment because like it's your familiar family and your community that you've known for and trusted. That's a very important point for a very long time.
Right.
The ultimate slap on the wrist when I left, it's not just, well, Randall, sorry to see you go, mate, maybe you can come back. It is fellowship for life. So I understand the fundamentalism, so that's why I understand this. I prefer to focus on that. That's my angle anyway.
I understand what you're saying about people making their belief their identity and not being able to disassociate from that.
And religion reinforces that. They really tries to make that part of your identity.
I'm going to move on to the next. Thank you very much. I'm going to move on to the next caller for 2 reasons. Firstly, he's been waiting very patiently for a while, and I have been sitting here very patiently, appreciating the fact that my bladder is about to explode. And so I'm going to bring him on and leave you for as short a period as I possibly can. But before I do, I've got to check. Toppled God, are you with us?
Can you hear the sound of my voice?
Yeah, you've got a bit of background noise, but if you just mute your microphone when you're not speaking, we should be okay.
That's understood, okay. Really, my question is aimed at towards Dr. Frank. Now I've got here that Dr. Frank, you're a neurobiologist, is that right?
Well, I am a journalist. I was a neurobiologist until 1996, which is about a lifetime ago. But yes.
Okay, the reason that I'm asking that, my question is more towards psychology, and Sky's the Limit has kind of stolen my thunder very slightly. That was the previous guy who was talking to you on the floor there. My question is, do you think there is a failure in the atheist community to use the science of psychology to provide an explanation to some of the psychological techniques utilized by religion to trap and control its followers?
Good question. I mean, what we've heard here is that there is a great emphasis on logical argument, and that doesn't always work. So maybe, yeah, using psychological methods or explaining about the community effect and so on might work somehow better. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not a sort of a proselytizing atheist, so maybe I should send the question to one of you two.